Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Standing Light podcast. It is a great honor to shine a light on Lars Muhl today, an incredible author. And we've also got Naleea in here today. And I'm going to let you explain a little bit about your incredible connection as well. But just a little bit about you, Lars. Lars is a Danish writer, mystic, and musician. For many years, Lars was a successful singer-songwriter in Denmark. Concurrently with his music career, he has engaged with self-studies of comparative religion, esoteric knowledge, and philosophy since 1965. And from 1988, he has focused on Aramaic, Christian, and Jewish mysticism. He has written 22 books on these subjects and hosts workshops, lectures in Denmark and abroad. Welcome, Lars. Welcome, Naleea. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Leyla.
So I would love to first celebrate the fact that Naleea is also on the podcast because you speak so much about the divine feminine, the divine masculine, Lars, in so many of your books. And I know that that's a very heartfelt topic of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully for more and more for many of us as well. It's such an important topic. But I wanted to celebrate the fact that you also wanted Naleea to be on the podcast because I asked her what exactly the intention was behind, because I wanted to understand it more clearly. And I had an intuition, but Naleea then really did share, it's because you want to shine a light also on the divine feminine. And she was also a big part of the book and your process as well. So I really wanted to shine a light and celebrate that because there's very few, let's say, famous authors or really, people in this field that honor it to this degree. And that's truly, truly incredible. So thank you for honoring the divine feminine in such an incredible way. So I would love, Naleea, also for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit how you also co-create together.
Yeah, maybe I should say a few words first.
Please.
Because I started to work with Naleea in 2017. But before that, we have been known each other since I think 2008 or something, where we met in London. She had just read my book, The Old Manuscript, and she just wanted to help and provided me connections with the College of Psychic Studies in London and the Alternatives in London. And over the years, we just continued to have a briefly contact,
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2017, I think it was, she started to interpret my workshops in Germany, and very from that, I think our collaboration just worked or grew from there. And she became more and more involved in editing the books, the German and first and foremost the English translations, and then she started to translate the books into German. And of course, from that, besides that we had a very special contact and was working, I felt, on the exact same frequency, but being masculine and feminine and representing these so-called opposites that it isn't opposite in that respect anyway. But so from that, for years I've been looking for someone to continue the work, so to speak, not my work as it is, but the work, on that frequency that also goes back to the Seer and the Moon Priestess that I talk about, Sylvia, in my book, The Grail. So it all came together, and I really understood this year that Naleea was the one that I thought could continue the work, because I'm still fit, being 72. But to start the process and start to work together and also get her more into the, what would you call, into the to the collective light, you know, not just being behind the scenes, because you know what I mean.
Yes. Yes.
So this is from my perspective. Maybe Naleea can add something to it.
I think that's really very well put. And to me, it's has been always this process of feeling connected through the frequency, so to speak, within the essence of the work. And so it's just a natural thing of growth, so to speak, that happened through exactly these steps that Lars just spoke about.
A natural evolution.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
An unfolding. You know?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
So we also, in this year, in 2023, we are going to work more extensively together in workshops and stuff, integrating the feminine in a much more visible way also.
That's incredible. Thank you for doing that. I'm really excited for that, and hopefully I can come to one of the live workshops.
You're very welcome.
Thank
there
you.
will be one in Bern in June, so that's close to you, isn't it?
Yes, Bern, Switzerland. Okay, I'll add that to the calendar. Amazing. So, you know, I wanted to share, as I was sharing with Lars before we started recording, we have some friends in common of Elena and Alejandro, who you were on their podcast. And when I saw that podcast and I realized that this new book had come out, The Light Within the Human Heart, something happened within me, because my company is called Standing Light. The podcast is called Standing Light. And the intention and the mission of the podcast, as well as the company, is to shift our world from a mind-based mentality to a heart-empowered reality. So to really activate that light within the heart and live from that space. And when I saw your book, everything in me just lit up, and I was so incredibly excited. And I have the O manuscript as well. I've had that for many, many years. But this book, just the title alone, I knew, okay, something's really in alignment and happening. And it's such divine timing for this information, for this message to come out. So I know that you've been doing this for so long, Lars, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being such a way seer for our collective consciousness, and for coding our field with all of this ancient wisdom, and really holding that space, you know. So
thank you.
And let's get right into it. I would love to. I took quite a few notes, and I have a whole highlighted book here.
Very
It's
good.
a little bit of
I love that.
probably seem like a mad professor.
Yeah, that's very good.
But you know, we could talk about so much, but I want to also be mindful of your time and the time. So I think, first off, the one question that I would love to, because in the book description, which I will just share a brief description of this new book, which I encourage everybody to run and get it. But The Light Within a Human Heart follows Lars Muhl on an inner and outer journey to the cave where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, using a metaphorical text, the Book of Aesop. Am I saying that right? Aesop?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. As a symbol for his search for spiritual enlightenment. This practical guide from Denmark's leading spiritual teacher will show you how to access your inner light and power, as well as reveal a roadmap for you to attain your own divine identity. So I would love to start off with the question in this, which is, how do we access our inner light and power?
First and foremost, to acknowledge it, and because that's really essential for me to to get people to know that we are already enlightened. We were born in the image of God, so to speak, or God consciousness, and it is like we have been looking here and there, running from east to west in order to find a guru or somebody to show us, but it's already there. We just have to acknowledge it and start to work with it.
Yes. Yeah. You also talk about the soul in an incredibly clear way that I think is very important for us to acknowledge and really understand and speak about as well on this podcast. And I had the former CEO and founding director of Hart, which have developed many hundreds of peer-reviewed studies on the science of the heart. And we actually dove into the topic of soul and spirit because it is vital for us to speak about this more and more, because so many of us have, I feel sometimes it seems like, disconnected from our soul consciously. And we're not using that soul intelligence to really anchor that intelligence from our heart and let that guide us. So, and especially now more than ever, I feel very disconnected people, and these are my words, and I'm really curious to dive into this topic with you and have this conversation to hear your reflections. But there's a passage in the book, and I want to read this for all of you. There's a level of consciousness far removed from such man-made limitations, where the soul is all-knowing, moving where it will, and in which it neither needs to pretend nor to be entertained. Instead, we'll find stimulation from intuition. If we don't connect to intuition, it won't connect to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk a lot about heart intelligence. That is one of my main topics. And I always say that the intelligence of the heart is intuition.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were to break just very briefly Heart Intelligence 101 or human intelligence, we've got the three brains in the human body. We've got the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain.
Mm-hmm.
And each of them have their own intelligence. So the head brain its intelligence is logic. The heart brain is intuition, and the intelligence of the gut brain is instinct.
Mm-hmm.
So this passage was just so powerful because it speaks exactly to that, right? When we reconnect with the power of our heart, with the intuition, the intelligence of intuition, and then we reconnect consciously with our soul that's anchored in the heart, I believe that that's kind of the missing link for our full potential as human beings here on Earth. So I would love to hear your perspective and hear how you've come to understand this and how you really connect with this space within you.
All kind of spiritual work is a kind of a way to connect to this essence. Either you know it or you don't, but it to me that's it, But something that Naleea and I have been very much into is not so much how can we do this in everyday life, going from the meditations room to the supermarket, for example. And it's been a thing of mine way back from when I worked with the Seer, that anywhere we go, everywhere we go, we are carrying our church or our sacred place with us, because we are already enlightened, and that this God consciousness that we were given when we were created is always there. So it is a matter of choice. What do you choose? And we are always challenged in the moment, because whatever drama we are being drawn into, and we are drawn into one drama after the other in this life, we can always choose. We can cannot change the drama itself, but we can change our perspective of it. How do we perceive it? That's the thing that we can do. And if we can undramatize a drama and see it for what it is, We have come a long way, and we have changed and we have transformed something. And as we are creators, co-creators of the reality we are living in, this is something, a tool that we always have, you know. It's not a big thing. It's actually very simple and not complicated. It's just do it. Go do it or don't, you know. I mean, I think that's about it, you know. And of course, you need to, when you start to do spiritual work, you will find tools that is more in alignment of who you are or of the frequency you're working on at the moment. But in the next moment, you can be working on a totally other frequency, and then again you can work on a lower one. It's shifting all the time. But in order to find a more consistent way of working on the same frequency, and hopefully a higher one that we worked on before, we need to find a way of working with spirituality that we can continue and keep up a practice in order to keep ourselves on that frequency. That's how I see it, that spiritual work is actually all the time remind us of staying into what we just read in that amazing book that we just read, you know. So it just not end up being just a fantastic book and that was it, and then we go to the next book. We need to pick it up, you know, and start to practice it, because it is about us getting experiences, personal experience of what is being. What is in that book is my experience, or Naleea's experience, or whoever. And maybe it is resonating with you and you find that's also your experience. But if you haven't experienced it actually, so your whole being has been part of this experience, then we don't know what we are talking about. We need to, so it is more a pointer to this is what happened to us when we did this. If you want to find out how it works on you, please, you are welcome to go and do the same thing, you know. And I think all spiritual books are just pointers toward, you know, inspirational pointers. And all of us must take responsibility for our inner enlightenment and go and practice it and experience it. Then we can go back and say, now I know what it is, or what it isn't, you know. It's all introspect. What about you, Naleea? How do you
interpret it?
View all these?
Yeah, to me, books, for example, they are as well space holders. So I'm sure we all have experience, I'm sure, when we read a book, it becomes like a companion that lifts us or lowers us, however, to a certain different state of reality in the moment we are reading it. You know, it's like a companion, and that oozes out an essence or a frequency. The same like music. If you listen to a certain kind of music, you enter into a field with that. And so I think that's a so inspiring process. And it's really needed to understand as well that, this inspiration that it's because I'm on a frequency now through that. And is it now that I wish, like, am I merging with that? Or what happens when I close the book? Well, and someone is doing something that makes me sad or angry or something like that, you know? It's like, and then I find that, that book or that music is like an island of peace or something that brings me back to inspiration. And that's wonderful. And yet it's so good to know not to judge then oneself when one can't hold things, because at some point it's like just really understanding our personality, integrating what we have learned really truly, and then come back to, so to speak, the own center again, and be true to that. And I think books or music, anything, any art, that resonates with our inspiration or in our heart space, is something that is like a teacher, and then it has to be let go again as well to truly arrive at that point. But coming back to the work with Lars for myself, it's like, to me, it was just a complete, it felt like I said, a home frequency to me. So I don't have to let go anything here, because it was already there, you know.
Embodied.
So, yes, yeah. But it's really, really important. And on the other hand side, while I'm listening to myself talking, on the other hand side, like you said before, I feel in the book there is so much just like a collective knowledge that is just downloaded, not only through the words, but as well through the energy in there, that maybe it doesn't have to even be let go. You know, maybe it's just something that lifts one to another frequency, but that is for the reader to judge, of course. But one thing, coming back to the practices or how to hold the light, there's one saying that spiritual work just doesn't work if you don't do it. So any practice is just amazing to start. And even if it's 5 minutes of stillness, sitting yourself in a chair for 5 minutes a day and stick to that, or sit next to a tree for 10 minutes a day. I've learned so much through that practice when I've done that for a while. So it can be the most complicated or the most simple, but just do something. And I think then you just cannot not experience that inner light in you.
Yes. And we're so blessed to have been able to feel it. And I think all of our heart's visions and desires is for so many to be able to feel that and experience that as well, because it's the kingdom within. And I love the reflections, because it just reminds me of a similar experience where integration almost only starts after you've closed the book. And it's so funny because, you know, we'll go and have incredible experiences, or we'll read books that have so many codes in them and ancient wisdom, but then we do have that choice. And just for a funny example, I spent time at a Zen Buddhist monastery practicing and studying meditation and mindfulness. And once I left, I thought that I was enlightened and that everything was going to be so easy. And the second I arrived in the train station, and then my mother picked me up, as soon as I got into the car with my mother, the triggers that I felt were unlike anything I had felt before. And I started hysterically laughing because I realized, okay, Leyla, now you start to practice what you learned. And I feel like that goes for anything. You know, we go deep into a study or into an experience, and then that choice point comes. Do you want to embody it and practice the embodiment on a day-to-day basis, a moment-to-moment basis? Or do you want to just close the book or close that chapter, whether it's a physical book or an actual life chapter or experience, and then just move on without really letting those codes or those lessons move through you and integrate through you? So I think that's a very good lesson and practice for all of us. And it just continuously reminds me of the Nike slogan, just do it.
Yeah, and it's as well, it's a lesson, and it's that experience that you have sensed it. So now you can have deeper faith in it. You know, it's not faith anymore, like what you have read. It's faith because you experienced it.
Yes. Yeah. The difference of thinking versus knowing.
Yeah. Like that, the sensation. What, for example, in this book, I feel, you know, there are sensations that are in the field, your field, in your body. And I think that, again, coming back to your first question, so sensation is a key, you know, to feel your resonances in the body. That's something that is not emotion, that's sensation. So to be able to just put, like Lars said, it's about knowing it is there, the inner light. So and now, like being open, listening, feeling, tasting the sensation of it.
And going beyond almost the five senses and letting that sixth sense of the heart take over. This actually brings me to another part that you spoke about, of the vertical and horizontal existence. And as the listeners know, since they're tuning into this podcast, I speak a lot about the electromagnetic field of the heart, which the heart produces. And our thoughts and emotions have a direct effect on this field. And it's ultimately what then we perceive as our reality. And I wanted to hear and dive deeper into this vertical and horizontal existence, because when we understand the toroidal field of our hearts, and also that every living thing emits, because every living thing emits an electromagnetic field, a torus field, including Mother Earth, we really can plug in on a vertical level to that field, with that field, right? And then that's when I have experienced or believe we operate from that soul intelligence, and we're plugged into source consciousness as well. But if we're, which most of us are in this three-dimensional reality, most of us actually only know how to exist from that horizontal plane. And I'd love to hear your perspective on this and dive into this as well. How have you experienced, or how would you explain the difference between the vertical and horizontal existence?
In the book, it is what is meant there is just that horizontal is, the timeline of the beginning and the end, within a time frame. But as soon as you turn that over, you are actually in the eternal now that can be anywhere,
Yes.
and it'll always be what you decide in that moment, and it is, we are very, of course, we have a past, and we are always looking into the future, of how is, and maybe worry too much about how it will go, and maybe we are too sad about something in the past and so on. But the moment we kind of delete that just for the moment, we go into another way of being that can be anywhere on that timeline and still be out of time, so to speak. There's another thing that, we have a practice where we breathe, inhale and exhale through the heart.
Exactly.
We draw light in, and Naleea, actually, that was something that was very inspirational for me. That it's not just going in here, but it's going in from all sides, from the back, from the up, from the down, just into that center of the heart,
Yes.
And just to have that, because another thing that is very important for me to inspire people with is, and the book is in itself a witness or a document on my experience in that field, that we can create anything, anytime, wherever we want. We can go anywhere, wherever we are, without moving, the physical body.
Yes.
We can start to create through visualizing something, So when you start to, for example, it's a massive healing force that we can call into our field by just imagine that we, from all sides, from up, from bottom, from back, and from the front, draw with our breath into the center of the heart, of that intelligence, in that kingdom of heaven, in that God consciousness that we are carrying there. And I think that is so inspiring. So that is where, to me, you know, the kind of alignment of the horizontal way of being and the vertical sort of being. I don't know if, Naleea, if you have anything to add, but that was very inspirational for me when you came in with that view on breathing in and out through the heart.
Yeah, to me, it as well is acknowledging, you know, that the equal cross, so to speak.
Exactly.
That, like, to me, the true name of that is the cosmic cross, and the vibration that comes from that middle is including the choice of this incarnation, so this timeline, but it is as well, like, it's not this is more or this is more, it's the moment where we are, no matter where we are. That is the most important thing. Nothing is more valuable or less valuable, and that's exactly the same coming back to spiritual work in the everyday life, in the supermarket, in the on the street, or what, with the mom, what you're saying. So it's like it's just that precious moment, you know, and that to me is really that melting of the all. It's the timelines, it's the light lines, and they meet in the now. And it's exactly what Lars is saying. It's so powerful to stand in there, and as well when you just allow that there is that duality, you allow, for example, as well, the masculine and feminine to merge. You know, and that's I think it's so wonderful. There is that freedom of really, through that moment, you become so clear with your own patterns, you know, your choices, and the craziness that is going on in your dramas. But because you always have that place to go to, you just again and again start new from there, because it's immense power. And as well, all these behaviorisms that normally I don't know, I think they happen because we believe we need to be somehow different than we are, and it's just transformed there. So I really love that work of holding the awareness of both, but just expanding. And as well, that one where we understand that the merging of the frequency without and the frequency from within, the giving and the receiving is one, you know, in that moment.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. The divine cross resonates very deeply. And, you know, I think many of us have experienced healing through our soul when we've done past life regressions. And for me, that has been one of the fundamental healing journeys that I've gone on, is being able to use my soul's intelligence and move through the vertical realms into a past life where the trauma happened that is now affecting me in this time and space. But if I didn't know how to go back there, I would have never is a strong word, but I had to go to the source point in order to be able to heal it. And if the mind doesn't understand, if logic doesn't understand, it's very difficult to heal something somatically, holistically. And so I can also recommend that this is the reason and the power of actually living also in the vertical, because you actually can go and tap into the soul consciousness of where sometimes some of the traumas that you're somehow experiencing, they might be phantom traumas or disorders or whatever they may be, and then really heal them in that way from source cause. That has been very powerful healing tool for me. So just to kind of maybe put into perspective, you know, the power of the vertical and the horizontal living.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also wanted to bring forth, and I mentioned it before, but in the book of Aesop, it says the most important truth is the kingdom of heaven is within and all around you. And this really moves directly into what we've been speaking about, right? This field. And we can now prove it on a scientific level, but this is ancient wisdom. And when we speak about the vertical and horizontal coming into one, right? Kind of the science, the scientific world of black and white and everything has to be proven in order to be quote unquote the truth, and living in that binary, to then now that's proven, right? Now we know that the heart emits this electromagnetic field, which in a sense, if we're going into ancient wisdom texts, the kingdom within and all around, that is the electromagnetic field of the heart. And then the ancient wisdom of just trusting that vertical knowing and source intelligence, right? So I'd love to hear how you have experienced, or really how that sentence alone, what that means to you.
It means everything, especially after starting my study of the Aramaic language, the language of Jeshua, who said that, Jeshua, who said that that sentence, that remember the kingdom of heaven is within you and all around you. When we are talking about kingdom, it doesn't say anything really about what it is. The kingdom of heaven. A lot of people, they think it's somewhere up there, but in order to understand what it really is, and even on a scientific, as you say, quantum scientific level, you need to understand what it means in Aramaic, because Aramaic is built from root words, and those roots, they hold potentials that is activated every time it is being spoken, or it's being activated by being done, to a deed, or putting on a hand, in healing or something like that,
Yes.
So the root for example, in Kingdom of Heaven, a very important root there is, it says Malkuta Deshemaya. Malkuta meaning queendom, not kingdom, but queendom. And Deshemaya means heavenly, but the root word in Deshemaya is Shem, and that Shem is really that force of life, this image of God in which we were born. It is the very, without it, there would be no physical creation. It is through this living force that is everywhere. It's holding the whole universe together. It's holding each of our bodies together, our whole being. It is in our light bodies. It is that electricity, or that you could call frequency, that is really holding everything together in what we perceive as our reality. And within it, there is this God consciousness. It carries this God consciousness, and what I call the law of light, that is always functioning as a mirror, that I think all people have experienced that we have been going into a dead end, or we are on our way down a blind alley, and suddenly we get an inspiration, or we hear a little voice, something is happening, and we are suddenly, our attention is called to in another direction, and then suddenly we see something that we haven't seen before, and we say, now I understand. Now I really, yeah. So this is the law of light speaking to us. It's a mirror, because in that moment, we need that mirror. When we can just see we are standing at a dead end, we don't know where to go, we can't go any further, and something happens in our life. It can also be through an illness or through some violent thing happening in our life, or divorce, or we are getting fired from our job, or something that really makes us stop up and rethink and make another choice, you know. And that is all part of that shim of that kingdom of heaven or kingdom of heaven that is all around us, and which we are carrying within, that you call the inspiration of the heart, for example. It's all part of that. And that's when we realize that is part of the package, you know. This is actually the gift we were given, and we can start to create through it in all kinds of ways. We just need to acknowledge it, take responsibility for it, and start to practice it. And then we go into a whole other field. When I was working with the Seer for that 7 years or 9 years, but 7 years mostly, it was some of the best years of my life. Not because he was talking about these things, but he was those things. His very being was expressing those things. And another thing when talking about him that was so inspirational was that he was very much a personality, you know. He was not talking about getting rid of any personality. He was very much a personality. But somehow that personality was working for his higher self, you know, being very odd at times, very, very off, you know, and people would say, "Oh, what a strange man," but he didn't care. He did not give any, you know,
Yes.
of how other people perceived him, of what they thought about him. He couldn't care less. He was not here to being. He was working behind the scenes, so to speak, and he was supposedly. He said he was supposed to be in what you call invisible, not needing anybody's applause or anybody's approval, because you don't need any approval when you know who you are.
Yeah.
And you don't make a fuss about being whatever people think you are or aren't. You don't make a fuss about it. You just continue the work. That's why we're here. And that's part of the pack. I know, and I really celebrate that there are people who are meant to be celebrities and who are here through that kind of work to be very well known about a lot of people. And that's part of their, you know, they are here maybe as teachers in that way. I totally recognize that, and but for most of us, we should, if we are not called in that direction, we should find our way of working, and we all have a gift to share with each other. We are each other's teachers, and that is why I think the time of the guru, as we know it, you know, that we are celebrating a guru or we are worshipping somebody, those days are over. I mean,
agree.
It doesn't mean that we are not respecting people who can inspire us, and so to speak, but that's it. We don't have to make a big fuss about it. And I also know people who are very, 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 very spiritual intelligent, who are actually getting embarrassed when other people are trying to worship their personalities, because they know that it's not a way for them to go down that alley, you know. So they just let's get over it, let's get on with it, you know. We don't have to, you know. So it's all coming in now, and I think should be an inspiration for all of us. Let's get down to the actual work and do it, you know.
Yeah.
Don't make a fuss about all this, because it ought to be so natural, you know.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah. I always say it's a matter of harm. And this is also the divine cross that you so beautifully tagged, Naleea. It's a merging of the divine and natural experience of us, right? And we all are emerging and a unification between a divine human being and a natural human being. And the cross where those two meet is in the heart. And then we create the coherence between the head and the heart. And we understand that, or we embody that and feel that. It takes practice, of course, but I'm so curious what your explanation or experience would be, especially, talking about the seer, how would the ego be a part of that? Or is there no ego? Is that the epitome of living without the ego, when you just don't care about what anybody thinks?
It's part of it, but he absolutely had his own ego, and he was also talking about it sometimes. If you've seen the documentary I did on him, he's actually addressing that in that film.
Okay.
But he just managed to, when he was dealing with other people every morning, and he went into his office and had his clients phoning him from all over the world, he parked his personality outside, or his so-called ego, and that was very, very obvious when I sat with him in his office sometimes for a month or longer, even every day, and experienced what he was doing. And it was so obvious that he was totally different when he was there. He was at the point all the time, straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
And when he came out, he had to deal with all his personal problems, that was absolutely the same as everybody else's, so that's the same thing we can do.
Mm-hmm.
We should not sit and wait for us to get totally ego-free, because that day might never come. So we will just waste a lot of time doing it. And we should maybe also understand now what it means when the old masters of the East are talking about to be ego-free. What does it really mean? Is there something that we have misunderstood? Because we are here on Earth for a certain reason, and coming into a body and being restricted by all the limitations that does for the soul and for our being, it means that we also have to cope with that ego and our senses and all these things. And instead of trying to get rid of it, we should maybe try to incorporate it in alignment with our higher being, our higher self, in order to make them work for us while we are here. I think that is much more
sustainable.
Yeah.
There's an incredible therapy called internal family systems, or short for IFS. They also call it parts therapy. And it has helped me profoundly, because you get to see yourself in many different parts. And we all know, the higher self part, the inner child part, maybe even some know the soul part, but we're made up of all these different parts. And I was able to really distinguish my ego as being a part of me. And the second I tried to kill it, or I'm ashamed of it, or I hate it, or whatever, those lower vibrational emotions are, where we just try to push something away, we actually densify it even more. And we actually, it gets even heavier and more prevalent within our field. But if we use those higher vibrations of love and forgiveness and compassion, that's when alchemization and healing actually can take place, or also the neutralization. And we get to then see our ego. I start envisioning my parts in a very fun, playful way. So my ego is like this little Napoleon guy that just, is very tiny and short and stubby and likes to have and it loves to have a tantrum all the time. And it's, you know, it's constantly acting up and throwing tantrums, and it can be overpowering, especially if I let it overpower me and I am ashamed of it, or I am scared of it. But the second we come into this more playful nature and we realize, okay, my ego is just a little child having a total tantrum. It's trying to actually protect me, but it's not operating from source consciousness, from love, from trust. It's operated by fear. So let me bring compassion and love to it and say, hey, I get it. You're scared right now. I love you. We're okay. We're safe. Go hang out here somewhere, wherever you choose, in the field or right outside of the field. Let the angels and our guides come, you know, play with you and take care of you. But right here and right now, I'm choosing to operate from my soul, from trust, from love.
Yeah. And I think that exactly what you're saying, and then really doing that.
Yes.
You know, that in everyday life, I think that's so amazing, you know, and everything changes then. Like, so there was a loud word with someone and you remember and you just stop and you shift, and it's just, and it doesn't matter if someone else now understands or not, but you understand and you go into compassion, peace, you know, that for me is like the golden rule, really. What is the frequency that comes out of my heart? Is it peaceful or not? You know, I can speak very lovingly and very this and very that, and we are all in a certain way. We can do so many things, but it's not. It can be maybe not true, you know. But if that is the dedication, you know, and peace, of course, peaceful, of course, or loving as well, to the Napoleon or to whoever, you know, whoever mine is. I'm going to find a name now.
Yes. Get playful with it.
Yes, but yeah, but for me, I work so much with the inner child. You know, I work so much with that, in that sense of really look, it's already past the moment, you know, come back into the moment again. And then there's the triggers really, like, yeah, it needs to be lived, what you're saying, and then there is the biggest freedom to that is unfolding from there. Absolutely.
Not to make any part of us wrong when we feel it in the moment, but to let it move through us.
Yeah, and again, the sensation, like what we were coming from before, from the kingdom of heaven is within and all around us. So there's another aspect of that, with that we are made in the image of God. And what does that mean? Lars speaks so much about that, to really understand that source and I are one. Image is frequency. The image of God, it's the frequency. I am in the frequency. I'm nothing different to that. And that is, again, that to understand that it comes to you and you give it back, and it comes, and it's the sacred breath coming, it's the sacred breath leaving. It's the sensation of being flooded and giving yourself. You know, that is, to me, the kingdom of heaven, within and without, the merging of that. And then you are in the center of the cross. You are the creation, or of the sphere, like I always work with the golden sphere. So, and then from there, you create now this moment. You know, what frequency am I now gifting to the world? Now, what streams out, beside of that it is made from that essence, but what is my thought? What is my intention? How is my tone, my frequency, my, you know, and then to understand, when you are there is no harm, there is no negativity, there is no, but of course, in the moment, you are accepting what was before, but there is the transformation. When you are receiving and giving, or maybe not giving even, but oozing out, or
emanating.
Emanating. So, and to me, that is really the kingdom of heaven, within and without, you know.
We then are the alchemizers and the alchemists. And or we could also say, because I love how you said, it's we're past the times of gurufying somebody else, right? Jonathan Field, it's from him I heard it the first time, you are the guru. And that comes, of course, there's people that will come before us, like you, for me, Lars, that just help inform our consciousness, but it's probably most likely a remembering, right? And then we all get to remember through each other, through the field downloading information through you that then downloads it into my field, and we all ping each other through the natural original World Wide Web or divine web. And that's when we get to kind of wake up, and really illuminate this higher awareness. So I'm
That's
really excited.
also very much talking about the real internet.
Exactly.
And the moment that people, they understand that, that's when we are really moving this reality, and then are able to do something. But there will probably also be somebody who wants to make money out of that, and they'll find out that that's not possible. So they are really stunned, and maybe then they will think, oh, maybe there's something else to it that we don't know about yet. And this is what we are talking about right here now. And I think that's very inspirational.
Yes. I don't know if Naleea told you, but we had an original call, and then I hadn't finished reading the book yet. And it was nighttime, and I was lying in bed, and we were supposed to have the call the following day. And I took the liberty of assuming that you understood how to communicate through the original or natural divine web or internet. So I sent this emanation out to you, Lars, and I said, Lars, thank you so much. I am all in. I'm all ready to do the interview tomorrow. However, I haven't finished the book. And if it feels more aligned for me to finish the book, then let me know. And I woke up to a message from Naleea saying, Lars feels that we should reschedule the meeting. And that was just the most, it was just such a testament to really what we're capable of when we tap back in and use our original natural, quote unquote, internet, or ultimately the web, right, of Mother Earth, which we are all connected to, and use our soul intelligence to communicate.
You see, that is really, really a good example of what we are talking about. That by sending out, you send out this thing,
Code.
this thought, this code, and it is just going in there, and it's being processed and answered, And there's so many examples of this all through history in many different ways. And this is something I could really go on into, but I think this is part of our understanding who we really are and the gifts we were given, how we can start to communicate and be more and more aware of it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have you on for another podcast so we can talk about that specifically. Because it's really one of my passions to really bring this out as well. So I'm so grateful for both of you.
Thank you very much for having us and for your very inspirational podcast.
Thank you. I would love to close with just one question to both of you. What does it mean for you to stand in your light? And I know we spoke so many ways about it, but to close it off.
Freedom for me. Makes me so happy. Makes me so unbelievable happy that I have this choice to feel free, however the physical circumstances are, really, in a painful mental, in a painful physical, in a painful emotional state, to come back there and to feel free again. It's amazing.
To be able to share the gifts that I was given with, and share it with those who are open towards it. That is, to me, the most important thing for me, that I can really now do what I was supposed to do in this lifetime.
Oh, I resonate with both of those very, very much.
All right.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and such an honor to shine a light on both of you. Thank
What
you.
about yours? What is your?
I can, goodness, I really resonated with both of you, but for me right now, that's what's very active is to really to shine my light in terms of, similar to what you said, Lars, it is my destiny, you know, it is I believe my destiny to help illuminate the light within all hearts. It's part of the destiny and intention of Standing Light. And so to stand in my light is to really emanate this information, this message out from my heart, to be an embodiment of it as much as I possibly can. And it's a daily practice. And I have all kinds of faults and whatnot, but and whoever is meant to receive it and resonates with it, may they resonate and receive it.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah, me too. Maybe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sending
Take
you
care
a
now.
big wave of love from my heart to yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care
Bye.
now.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye.